this is Sutton Conservation, March 4th, 2020. First thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, I'm looking for him. Okay, this is a continuation, so if somebody wants to waive the reading, we don't have to read this in again.
I make a motion to waive the reading.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
First thing is 10 Lincoln Road, lot number 2.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Norman Hill. I'm a civil engineer with a consulting firm for land planning. And we had first presented this plan to you back in around December. And then at that time, you had requested that we do an ANRAD on the entire property, which we did. And then with that last meeting, and that ANRAD was approved, so the boundaries have all been established. So this lot, after we did the ANRAD, we changed the lots. And the change we made was that 50-foot strip that used to be here.
Let me bring it up. Let me bring up that particular plan.
Wanda, do we have a copy of the plan? It's just easier
So
for me.
now we have the 50-foot strip up here off of Central Turnpike. But we used to have it between lots 1 and 2. And with that 50-foot strip in there, put lot 2 50 feet further down the hill. So after we looked at all the resource areas, we decided it'd be better to put a 50-foot strip up here and eliminate this 50-foot strip here. I'd like to point out that this 50-foot strip is not 50 feet wide all the way. It narrows to less than 50 feet. We did that on purpose. This lot can never be a special permit new lot, but it could be an access to open space. See what I'm saying, that 50-foot strip? It's less than 50 feet. It would never meet the conditions of the planning board. It would never qualify as a special permit rear lot. But that could be an access to some nice walking trails and open space.
So what you're saying is it can't be built on without that 50-foot access.
That's correct.
And what's the latest date on your plan? I've got 2 here. This must be 12/6?
The lot 2 plan, which is 10 February 4.
February 4.
I don't have a February 4th.
It's January 22nd.
January 22nd.
January's, I've got, brought in a whole bunch of.
So could we just for 1 second, just give us 1 minute?
Yeah.
So Wanda, let's get rid of the ones that we don't need.
Well, we
Just,
still, yeah, we'll
well, you
give them
have,
back to her.
so then put them in a different file.
Yeah.
What's the final revision date on this?
February 4.
Yep. That's what that plan
So
is.
Brandon and I have February 4.
The February 4th plan is up on the board, on the screen.
All right, well, that'll be fine, I guess.
So by moving that 50-foot strip over there, we didn't need to use it. We didn't lose much frontage for this lot. So that allowed this entire lot, which had originally been proposed down here, to come up the hill. So the house, the septic, the driveway, everything went up the hill about 35 feet.
Let me show the comparison. Original site plan.
You see, we used to have this 50-foot swath of land there. Now that that's gone, it allowed us to move this house further away from the resource areas at the bottom of the hill. So we're still proposing the same 4-bedroom house, 2-car garage, septic system and well. Now the lot's a 2-acre lot. What you see in green is the area, the limit of work, which is about a half an acre, about just over 20,000 square feet. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Brandon?
I'm all set with this now. I recommend a special condition that the buffer zone signs be put along the limit of work every 50 feet and at anchor points.
That's fine.
It's already on the plan, but yes.
I think it's a much better plan with the ANRAD as you reconfigured the lots and thank you for making that the way you did for that backland. So,
I don't have any questions. I do believe it is a better plan as well.
Mike,
I'm all set, yep, it's good.
Nicole? I'm good.
All right, so I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, well, we should have had people from the audience, but,
Is there gonna be another lot north of this one?
Yeah, lot one will be on the corner,
Okay.
and then this is lot two, and then we're also gonna ask for lot three down here. There'll be 3 lots we'll be asking for together. Lots 1 and 3 will be at the next meeting. In 2 weeks, next in 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, did anyone have any? No, not with that one? Okay,
Thank you. Have a good evening.
you too.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for volunteering.
We
your
only
time.
closed the public hearing, we didn't make the.
Thought there was 14 Lincoln Road is supposed to be talked about today also.
Hold on,
We have
do
no
we wanna?
problem with the agenda. There's only 2 on this agenda tonight, the rest of them will be next week, or next Monday.
Oh, you didn't make the motion
I'll
to,
make a motion to approve,
to what did he make it, the OC?
You issue an order.
Issue
lot
an,
2, 10 Lincoln Road, lot 2.
issue an order condition.
Issue an order of conditions.
Special conditions.
With a special condition, which is on this, the plan signs every 50 feet,
I'll make a second.
along the limit of disturbance.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, that was the most important part, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep,
Three,
it's where the wood lot is.
4.
Alright, thank you.
We have to get another plan from him, because we don't have,
You don't have a plan to sign?
no, you've got plans from the last meeting that you can sign.
We have 3 plans, one from November, one from December, one from January, but there was
We don't
none.
have
What's the
one
final
yet.
revision date on it?
That one was February
January
4th.
20th.
He said his plan was
Turning around
February
that.
4th.
There's a table on the right-hand side, right below his stamp.
January
With all the
22nd.
revisions up here.
Yeah, January, December, Easter, January 22nd.
Somewhere there'll be a thing right here.
January 22nd.
No, that's not it. That's the original date.
Oh, that's,
Revisions
you know
right
what,
here, see?
that's 101.
Okay.
Yep.
Good, that was the one I was looking at.
124, that's
Got
not
it?
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's too good, so these two are useless.
Close 6. I just put 'em over here and here, 'cause I'm gonna have to influence with that.
These two you can throw away. Keep these.
So we will need a new plan in order to sign that one.
Yeah, you can sign them past the next meeting. Okay, where's your, I need your papers. Here's this. Next one.
Okay, the next one on the agenda is
Do we have to wait?
161 Mendon Road.
What?
Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March, this says 11th.
I know, some of them got printed wrong.
We gotta change to the 4th. 2020 at 6:40 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Exeter Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Mint Black Incorporated, Sutton, Mass. The project consists of replacing failed existing septic system within 100 feet of the wetlands on map 30, parcels 34, on 161 Mendon Road, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Raouf Mercaz with Alpha Omega Engineering. It's just septic system repair. We have existing well, brook, wetland. This is the tree line. We have a ledge right here area. This is the existing field system right here. It's in groundwater. This is the proposed system, which is much farther from the wetland. We did ask for a variance to keep the system as close as possible to the well, and also it is far enough from the 50-foot buffer from the wetland itself. So we're keeping everything outside the buffer, the septic wise, just a small grading will be here inside the buffer, otherwise everything is outside.
And that one's not gonna be in groundwater?
No, it's raised system actually.
Okay.
It's about 3-4 feet higher. You have no other option.
Brandon?
This was a pretty easy review. The backyard's almost perfectly level. There's no woody vegetation to take down, it's all lawn. Mr. Macarios put it in a position that keeps it as far away from the wetlands, given the site constraints. There's nowhere in the front that I saw that you could put it, and the well is in the front yard anyway, so that's not gonna work. You know, the issue is that Dark Brook, it follows the backyard on 3 sides. It wraps right around the edge of the lawn in the back. So that's just what we're dealing with. It's a Title V system. The only question I have is I'm just wondering, so what's gonna happen to the existing system?
They either remove the tank or crush it in place and fill it with dry sand, but the leach field itself stays in the ground, you don't touch it.
Well, it looks like you're gonna be going into that a little bit.
This is just the tank, the old tank right here.
Yeah, but that blue rectangle is the approximate location of existing septic.
Yeah, we're gonna
Rip up it a little bit,
get a little bit, yeah.
but otherwise it's just gonna stay in place.
Everything stays in place, yeah.
Okay, we're using 100% biodegradable 12-inch door bottles?
Yep.
No further questions?
This is an NOI, right?
It's an RDA.
An RDA, okay, 'cause
Raouf, he consulted me on this. Yeah, we're in the riverfront area, but it's a Title V required repair, and it's 100% lawn, and he's put it in a spot that is the best spot, so.
well, I was confused 'cause on the agenda it says NOI, so.
Yeah, when I transferred everything, it got a little mixed up.
All right, Zach?
I don't have any, do we have a DEP number? For this, or
No,
do we
we
not
don't
need it?
have them for that.
If it's an RDA, it's not required.
Okay.
Mike?
No questions.
Nicole?
No questions.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to issue a
Request of
Negative.
determination.
negative determination for, this is not another thing, an RDA
For 161.
for 161 Mendon Road.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah.
You need to set a record here.
Just sign that, and I'll put money in for that one if you wanna sign it.
On
It's just board business.
Did you sign that? Oh, yeah.
I have the one I need.
No, I just,
No, the other one.
that one?
No, that, Jerry's supposed to sign. This one right here.
Oh, no, that's me.
What's that? I need the signed sheet for the
I
one you
just
did
put, I
once
just put it
before.
here and I think you took it. It was on the clipboard.
No, I don't have it. Where did it go?
I,
This is 161?
Yeah, it's 161.
Yeah, it looks like it's already been signed.
No, I need the signed sheet.
Oh.
The signed,
The RDA, the determination of applicability?
it's on the clipboard. This
The
is a clip,
DOA?
this is a clipboard that I brought.
This is the one I brought.
did you sign the request?
Yeah, I just checked it off and put it here.
It's not there. 'Cause this is one I just took off the clipboard.
Well, that was what was on the clipboard, yeah.
I never signed both of these.
This is the bills, yeah.
Yeah, you
so-
sign both of them, huh? Well, I'm gonna have to go get another sheet for you to re-sign.
It was right here.
I know, what the heck happened to it?
You didn't leave the room. We didn't leave here. It's gotta be,
I put it on the wrong one. Jeez.
where's the clipboard?
It's empty.
Where?
Yeah. There's only 2 sheets on it. Maybe I didn't put them on there.
No, I just signed it and put the clipboard here and you took the clipboard.
No, the piece that everybody does, all of you have to sign, the sheet for the request for determination. Well, you can do something else if I go print it out. You get it all?
Okay.
Write that one.
Okay, minutes, February 5th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 5th and table the approval of the minutes for February 19th.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Nicole can't vote on February 5th.
Correct.
Certificate of compliance, Leland Hill Estates, those have to be on hold because they haven't gotten that stuff in yet.
Yes, I do have an update. We received an email from
Sign this
Direct
one.
Gazette
Okay.
of Allen Engineering, and they have found that they believe that the signs may have been moved. So I said, we continue to work on a revised, as-built plan, showing what the changes are, so they're working on it.
And make sure they're cemented in.
Well, I look back at it, and this was a order of conditions from 2012, and Leland Hill Estates, believe it or not, was the very first site where the signs were required. And it was great that the signs came about, but nobody had thought to require them to be cemented in at that time, so they were never required to be cemented in. So it obviously made it very easy for them to be moved, as probably we've already seen in
Yes.
other spots. So the cementing has been a very critical part of the sign process.
I went to the environmental law thing the other day, as you know.
I was in the same.
And you were in the same place. And if you remember when he said that if you want something to happen in perpetuity,
Yes.
then on the certificate of compliance, list those in perpetuity conditions.
There's a checkbox that reads ongoing conditions, and then you
Yes.
have to specify exactly what conditions, and I make sure to do that every time.
So I think we need to,
That's gonna be difficult when we have to file in DEP. Cause I don't think any of that's on there.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that.
No, neither am I.
anyway. So we need to specify when we give the certificates of compliance that if there's any ongoing conditions that we mention those at the same time. I'll put it on the sheet.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to like table?
No,
Okay.
the permit primer.
Do you want me to keep this Leland Hill Estates on every meeting until we get the as-built? For updates, or are we gonna get an as-built?
Should we take it off till we hear from them again?
As-built,
Yeah, sure.
remove it?
I haven't forgot about it. Hopefully Erica hasn't either.
The permit primer, you're the one that, we had the, oh, I meant to bring the,
Permit primer,
part that was in yellow.
yeah, you have that one.
I can, yeah.
I think that last one was, everything was kinda covered to approve any other option that people came up with, was on there,
Was it the sign one?
yeah.
Buffer zone signs.
Yeah, wanna read that, Brandon?
This is what it is, and now this is still subject to change. Buffer zone signs or equivalent will be erected at the approved limit of work / disturbance and/or edge of a wetland per the specifications in the order of conditions and/or site plans, if specifically required in the determination of applicability or order of conditions. The signs are affixed to a galvanized steel post with cap set 4 feet above ground and set at least 18 inches into the ground with a concrete base. The sign must be a minimum 6 inches by 8 inches minimum in diameter. I have a duplicate minimum there. And rust resistant, for example, aluminum. Affixed with stainless sheet metal screws on the top of the pole just below the cap. Any alternatives must be approved by the commission. See your order of conditions and site plan for details.
So the only thing we wanted to do different was the wet meadow.
Right, so if you, wet meadow or a place where it's in close proximity to the house where someone would wanna look out their window and see it every day.
I thought, well,
So
okay,
then that would be covered by,
any
approved by the commission.
alternatives,
So ultimately, we have the right on any project to do as we as a board see fit.
an alternative that we see fit.
Yeah, so I suppose that the
So as long as we're saying it
granite
out loud,
posts
yeah,
could be an alternative.
and not every 50 feet at points.
However the commission, whatever the commission's pleasure is. Every case is different, so it gives you the options to be flexible.
So the biggest thing that this does correctly is spells out what the process is for the sign itself.
Right,
Because that's the biggest, that's what's not consistent, whether it gets, even if it gets approved this way. I personally have gone on site visits and see it not done this way, on current order of conditions that aren't been closed out.
I just saw one today, Mr. McGowan.
So I guess the question is, we just wanna make sure that when we ask for them to be on a plan, that we're gonna follow through and that we
enforce it.
always don't just put them every 50 feet, like, be mindful for people's backyards. Be
Right.
mindful for the wet meadows that we can do it a little different than every 50 feet. As long as everybody agrees, the language is fine with me for now. I just don't wanna see these homes with signs across their front yard that are taken down, moved. I just want something in place that, accomplishes the mission. I mean, like, is to protect those wet meadows, or, you know, to spell out edge of disturbance, which is in from the wetland, which isn't bad when it's a wooded line, you know?
So we had talked about the bounds with something on top, so that's an alternative, so,
Right, if you didn't wanna look at a sign, you're willing to spend a little more money, you could do a
Yep.
granite bound with a placard, and
Yeah.
it would be a lot less noticeable than a sign on a galvanized wall.
What do you think of that?
you have to read it to me, cause I can't read it from here.
For example, alternative signposts such as granite bounds with placards that are more aesthetically pleasing may be erected adjacent to wet meadows or in close proximity to houses.
I like it. It's an improvement.
Okay,
Okay with me.
make a motion.
Or should we wait for Andy and just to close that? I don't think they had any more to say.
No, I don't think, I think you were the one that had the,
Well, they
You can table it
had
till
concerns
next
about the way it
meeting.
was too. Let's just table it one more meeting, just out of respect to those two. It's not gonna hurt anything, I mean, we're not,
Well, okay, we do have an issue with, oh, where's all that stuff that,
Too.
yeah.
Before you do that, can I ask you, at the last meeting, this paperwork didn't get signed, it was for the ORAD for 101 Central Turnpike, if you could just sign that so I can mail it out. And then I have a plan here that didn't get signed also.
well, does Andy and Bill have to, well,
No.
Andy wasn't here, Bill was?
No.
No, as long as.
As long as three?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as
Okay.
three. This
Nicole
one
can't
here-
sign it, but the rest of us can.
Yeah, this one here was for 214 Worcester Providence Turnpike that also needs to be signed. It's just that sometimes I don't catch it before you sign the other paperwork and then, no, did you show me? Okay, this sheet I can put with the other one. I don't know, I must have printed this, that's why it didn't get on there. But, okay, that's okay. Okay, so I got all 82 over here. Zach is being buried by it. Okay, so here's the top part, that's the part that goes to Jen, this is ours, right there.
Okay, this is, the review that came up at the last meeting, and so Nicole, you can't, well, it's just a recommendation here anyway,
Plan.
but it's the,
Yeah.
82 Melbury Road. Did you wanna say some things on that?
8 Lots Road.
I'll give them background on that.
82, is this the
It's-
lot?
This is the
that-
Jabber, yes.
Compound.
Oh, yes, okay, let me bring it up on the plan. Yeah, no, let me bring up the actual site plan from, West Millbury Road from.
You might wanna explain that it went from 2 driveways to 1 in the background on this, because I'm the only one that was here during that whole thing. The issue,
Yeah.
just quickly here, the issue is, this is a deed restriction for endangered species, so they've got their driveway going right through a deed restriction that's in perpetuity. So, they can't do that. But anyway,
Right, so,
So we're back to,
those folks, they came to the Conservation Commission asking about access, and they presented an alternative access through adjacent property off of West Millbury Road to get to this lot on 8 Lots Road. And going that way meant they were able to 100% avoid crossing the wetlands, and everybody thought that was a great idea. But the thing that everyone, including myself, overlooked was the fact that the lot that they were going to be going through, back in 2014, 2 new houses were built, and they were built in box turtle habitat, which is considered a rare species in
and
Massachusetts.
four-toed salamanders.
The four-toed salamander. So, when you deal with endangered species, you have to deal with the Massachusetts Fish and Wildlife's Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. And what they do is they make you actually put a portion of your property into a permanent conservation restriction, put signs up, and that section of land now becomes a permanently protected area for said rare species. That's the area that the driveway was proposed to go through to access this lot. That didn't get brought up until last week when Jen noticed it in planning. And the question is, can you go through it? My personal experience is that it is gonna be extremely difficult. Those conservation restrictions are ironclad, and I highly doubt that they're gonna be able to do it. That said, this is now above my pay grade, and it's now into the realm of dealing with the lawyers. So, I think we might be back to square one, coming off of 8 Lots Road and having to do a limited crossing, over the wetland.
I went to see Jen this morning, cause I saw your email the other day, and she printed off, she went on the registry of deeds and printed off the deed restriction. They had one before, and they had to vacate those, do another one when they did these 2 lots. And so the proposed driveway is right through the middle of it, and it's in perpetuity. And I've got the 8 pages here somewhere, and I gave it to Wanda to put in the file here, and look at all the
Still
continuations here.
clipped. Yeah, it
before.
would continue, it should be clipped
So-
right with this, right here.
Up on,
It's in here.
the TV screen, I have one of those 2 lots shown.
No, that's not it, Wanda. No.
The area in green up there is the conservation restriction area.
There's 4 pages, but it's the actual deed restriction we printed off this
Yeah.
morning from the
See how it goes
registry of
straight
deeds.
across the back?
Oh, this isn't
That
the one I
kills-
printed off this morning,
That kills any chance of
because
being able
no,
to
it
cross
had
through there.
numbers in the bottom.
What's
of
this
the pages.
property address? Is this the
Um,
one on West Mulberry
West
Road?
Melbury Road,
Okay.
82,
So that's 39 West Mulberry Road.
80,
It's owned by, the name was a Middle Eastern name,
Jabber.
Jabber.
Or it's 82 8 lots. Cause that's where the other, 50-foot thing, this is way back to 2004. Yeah, I know, we had it this one. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, but, yeah, yes, okay, that's it. So if anyone wants to see it, here's the deed restriction, it's an 8-page thing, and it's in perpetuity. So that's the current one, so basically, we have to revise our thing to planning board and just say that there is a deed restriction on there, and, they cannot access it through that
Brandon,
area while it's still in,
are these the houses on West Mulberry Road that already have a common driveway?
there's 2 of them,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
So the plan I just showed you, this one right here,
Yep, that's those houses.
that's the house, that's this house right
Okay.
here. So what you would do, make it line up clockwise, right?
Yep.
Like that. And they have a strip that comes straight through the back here. So it cuts off all access.
Right.
It takes an act of the legislature to overcome
Any
No,
any
it's-
deed restriction.
It's a conservation, it's not a conservation restriction, it's a deed restriction.
Yeah.
And Jen was under the impression it went through us, but it's goes through, Fish and Wildlife
Right.
is part of the, natural heritage. So it's through them, so, and she did check on there and it is in perpetuity, so. So we need to amend this. It says what we had written at the last meeting was the applicant must file an NOI, and, file a COC for the 2 abutting properties. But now we need to say they cannot access it through, what do you wanna word this as?
Deed restriction,
Oh, they can't access through
West
deed
Mulberry,
restriction.
West Mulberry Road due to
West Milburn
deed
Road, deed
restriction.
restriction.
Conservation, deed restriction, whatever you wanna say, or, fishing, game, wildlife, something. So
Associated,
they don't think it's ours, I mean,
right,
it's the
associated
state.
with a rare species.
Cause without that deed restriction, they wouldn't have been able to build those houses.
You would think the people with the brand new houses would know that, seeing how it just happened. Wasn't that long ago, was it? I think you'd remember a deed restriction on your property.
Well, it was like 7 or 8 years ago.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
This
Yeah.
is 2004. I mean, sorry, 2014.
Right.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
See it, I just didn't, you know. I have the full map of the restrictions.
Yeah, well, I do too. It's It's everything here in green.
Yeah, plus that, it's the rest of it.
Well, the plan was there.
Everything.
The plan was there, but when we did it last time, I don't think Bill took the plan out and looked at the plan. We just, because they had come into us before and asked us, so we figured that was the better way.
I still don't believe they've come in for the certificate of compliance.
No,
Not
they
yet,
haven't.
no.
So I
was
put, there is a
thinking
deed
about that.
restriction and they cannot access from West Melbury Road, common driveway.
I was looking at those, I have them all to send out a letter for certificates.
There
So-
was a wetland crossing in that, so they had a.
Unbelievably, I found these at home this morning. I'm trying to throw away old papers, so I found these original things from 2013 and 14. I need to get rid of papers. Okay. Now I lost the agenda, but I think that's it. Oh, here it is.
That was the departmental side of this.
Yeah.
One bit of unexpected business.
Yep.
That you wanna know about. The meeting that I missed when I was sick, BSC came in for National Grid for the geotech borings.
Is that the Q 144?
Yeah, Q 143, R 144 line.
Providence Road?
The condition that was put on is that the commission wanted the signs, on the access roads when it hit the wetland.
I think it was one sign
One on the left
I
and the
think
right,
there was
I
a
think, just
few-
either
Yeah.
side.
on
Yeah.
either side, yeah.
As you go into the wetland on
Yeah,
the way
right
to
at the
each
edge
one
of
of
the
these
wetland,
spots.
yep.
So I got an email from BSC Group, that, Alexandra, the woman that was in here. She says, well, I brought this to legal, and they said we can't do that, because they don't own the property outright, it's an easement, and they have to get permission from landowners to do it. So they don't think they're gonna be able to do it. So,
So we'll just have to flag them each time they go.
I don't know what you wanna do with that,
Can't they put the signs in their easement?
the locations
No.
where they have these,
I know.
it has to be their property, otherwise they have to get permission from the
Mhm.
landowner to put up signs.
I recused myself from that one because I got an abutters notice, so that was Mike's baby.
Mhm. Well, I'm not gonna fight battles over a sign,
Mm.
so.
So you gonna drop it?
A lot of all the places to have a sign, think about all the kids on dirt bikes and four-wheelers and all the equipment going through there, and you had a chance just to at least acknowledge that it was there, but I'm sure Mass Electric.
I mean, can't they at least ask the landowner? And
Well,
if
we
they
could be
get a
stick-
no,
yeah, I mean, you know,
if,
Could
I
make
mean,
them go through the exercise, probably most of the landowners wouldn't mind.
yeah, that's, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Can we, I'm going off what Nicole said, can we make them, like, ask them to request permission from the owners to put it on and then see what we get from that?
Like have the landowners, just email them or a letter or something, and if they say no, then let us see the proofs that they said no.
Landowners might even like that because if they wanna keep the kids off, but probably the kids aren't gonna read the signs anyway, they're gonna fly by too fast.
Well, some of it is just to keep you at least to the path going through it and
Yeah.
not go destroy it, like, you know.
Yeah.
The idea of it was not to have signs out in the woods, it's just to say, hey, just stay on the path in this section, go, you know, like.
Let me read the response from, Alexandra. Come on. Hi Wanda and Brandon, I ended up sharing the copy of the order conditions that Wanda emailed me with National Grid. The NEP team, real estate team reviewed the OOC and asked about land ownership at the sign installation locations. After reviewing GIS in the assessor's database, it turns out that the 3 signs that we would install at the BVW crossings per the order conditions are located within easement properties, as opposed to fee-owned properties. After reviewing their easements, NEP Real Estate has indicated that their easement documents do not provide legal rights for permanent sign installation, other than what's on the structures themselves. National Grid would have to inquire National Grid would have to acquire additional property rights to install permanent signs. What are your thoughts on this? We can install semi-permanent signs on wood posts that would be maintained for the duration of the order of conditions. Would that be enough? If so, does the order of conditions need to be revised?
So there is an alternative.
I'm gonna walk that back a little bit. It's not that they have to ask landowners, it's that they would have to acquire additional, property rights, whatever that means.
But they could put in the temporary signs on wood posts. So the way I'm listening to it is if they put them in cement and so forth, they gotta get the other rights. If they put them on a wooden post, it's temporary.
Yeah, and then pull it out when they're done, which I think is doesn't add very much value to any of it.
They can't leave it there and forget about it.
Let's just have them do the wood signs cause I bet you they leave it.
Yeah.
And they have so much construction going on there that was some of the point, was that they're in and out of there all the time.
They were pulled in at one time because they left ruts off of Newton Drive.
The other
Mark pulled them in and told them, you gotta fix your mistakes that you're making.
If nothing else, it just defines the even for their workers, that was the thing. It was, some of it was just so they knew they were where they were. Other than what, a blue ribbon hanging with a number on it that they might or might not see.
Yeah.
Have them do the wooden sign with the post, right?
That's
Sign.
fine with me.
Yeah.
Then that's what I'll tell her to do. And we're gonna give up the ghost on the permanent sign?
Yes. That's okay with me.
And the last thing that's unexpected that I just found today as I was making the rounds, doing some inspections, the property at 269 Putnam Hill Road, it's one of 3 houses on the common driveway. It was a Mr. Romeo job. It's on the east side of Putnam Hill Road. One of the houses has lawn past the approved limit of disturbance, and I know that for a fact because the commission required signs, and the signs are still up, and the owner is still mowing the lawn beyond the sign. So I took a picture of it, and I'm gonna request that Wanda send an email,
Letter.
a letter in the mail. What do you think?
Would you like them to come
Yep.
in?
Yeah.
That's the call.
Do you want them, you would pull them in here, or?
Yes, because the other people didn't understand because no one told them what those signs were for. Or they didn't understand about them, that other couple that was in. So I would think that we need to come in and have it explained as to exactly what it is.
If it's the same owner, I've met this owner before, and they even know about how they're allowed to cut the wet meadow, and they've even worked on invasive species removal and done a very good job. So I don't understand why they're mowing the lawn beyond the limit of disturbance, but I'd like to get it rectified, because otherwise what's the point of having the signs?
Right.
Could it be that they're hired a company to do their mowing and they're doing it?
You know what, Wanda, you're absolutely right.
Because they don't know. You
Or
know,
don't
it could
care.
be that they hired
Well, if they
somebody
come
to
in,
cut
we can
grass.
ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
So I just have one thing, the outstanding certificates of compliances that haven't been, requested. I was able to get Wanda's file into an Excel spreadsheet, so we can easily do a mail merge to send out a stock letter for people that still have it outstanding. And I offered to Wanda, if she sends me the letter, I can get it mail merged for her to print and send.
Well, a lot of those have post office boxes in there.
I'm sorry, what?
A lot of those have post office boxes, Jeremy, and try to know what's in there. That's part of the problem. That I'm
We could at
having.
least send them to the people that we have addresses for, right?
Okay,
I mean, not everyone has a post office box.
So I can send you the letter.
Okay, now I've just lost what I was just looking for, that I was glad you brought that up, Nicole.
Oh, that TV thing I saw was on top,
Oh, yes.
Yep.
This is what I found going through my paperwork today, too. And this is something that we must have sent out, probably close to 10 years ago.
No, I wasn't allowed to put it on.
Okay.
I wasn't
Wanda,
allowed to
okay,
put it on.
Wanda did this whole thing on certificates of compliance and what they did it as in all nicely in alphabetical order and everything. And it says, ad for cable, we were gonna put all this on the cable, and then you weren't allowed to put it on cable?
So I'm watching, I think it was the last meeting, and people were talking about the certificate of compliance and not knowing because it was
Mm-hmm.
Right.
3 owners back or whatever. I
Right,
mean,
and
this
that's
can
what's
be,
happened.
if I got a letter in the mail saying there's an outstanding thing on my property, even though I didn't own it 20 years ago, when I would try to remedy it. I mean,
We've had about 4 people come forward with some of the letters I've sent out, and we've done a few, and
but we could do this in bulk, like to current resident of.
I think it's nice, it's too bad we couldn't post this, because it's not people's name, it's just
No,
addresses.
it's just
And
And a lot of
addresses.
these people don't know, they could've even bought them and inherited it,
Yep.
I would have
and then
to
someday they're gonna go to do something and
redo it.
they're gonna
'cause there's
panic and
some
have to
that
come and
couldn't.
hurry up and get in front of
Yep.
us and. I've said it
I was
before,
gonna
this
do
doesn't
that
do
way
anybody any
back.
good to have these on there, I mean, people that grouch your deed.
Yeah, I mean, it does show up on a title report that
If
there's
it's
an
done right.
open order of conditions.
The other thing I sent out yesterday, I don't know if you got, is the, list of the, yes,
Minor activity, yep.
the, minor activities. So I guess people wanted that posted on the website. So I don't know if we wanna post that particular list
With the minor activities on
with the
it?
minor activities.
I have to go through the list again, cause there are some that have come forward and I got.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, no,
some
no,
of
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
It's just nice that, that's.
Well, you worked out the minor activities
Yeah.
during your work group, what, last week?
But that's,
Yes, we started talking about it.
there's
We
the,
didn't finalize it, we just,
there's a list. I
I read it,
emailed,
I read it.
yeah, so
I
I
think it's
don't
a
know
good start.
if we
We should have
wanna
a
just,
discussion as a group with it.
well, those are the ones that are allowed, I mean, we
Right.
can't,
Well, right now, but we're having discussions of change.
we can't, those are the state ones.
Oh, okay.
Those are the state allowed activities, we
Oh,
can't,
oh, oh.
we can't
Right,
allow
I'm sorry.
something,
I'm tired, it's the end of the night.
we can't allow something that the state doesn't
Right,
allow.
no,
So-
understood, they're perfect.
Well,
No, they're
it's
perfect.
kinda wordy, I don't know if we can shorten it up or just post this on the website, but, so, if we just post that, that's
That's all I would do.
Yeah.
That's what the state says.
That's what the state says.
Joyce, I couldn't print it in a decent size, it comes out blurry, so I don't know if you can print me a copy, maybe I
Yeah.
can scan it in.
Yep, it's right there,
Yeah.
There you go, Wanda.
See.
or I can
Oh
do
yeah,
another
that's a
one.
decent size, the other one I can't even read it.
Yeah, we can't allow them to do something that the state,
So under the
Does the
state rate, so
state.
then my only question, we should wait and have it as a group. I'll wait.
Yeah,
We should
let's
discuss that
do it
though.
next
Cause
week.
I have questions about it and I want Andy and Bill to be here too. Just about how it comes into play with the state regulations versus our bylaw, and with the change of our bylaw and the jurisdiction of resource area, not buffer zone. So was those state regulations in the wetland or in the buffer zone? Like, that's what you're allowed to do in the buffer zone, in the state regulations, or?
yes, in the
Okay.
buffer zone.
No, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a whole list of, minor activities in the state
That's it.
regulations.
And I did email it, so I don't know if you're.
No, I read
Yep.
I read
Yep.
through it all and I said, no, this is what we would, that's pretty much what we were discussing at the meeting.
Yeah.
And if we all agree and that's the state regulations, and then everybody knows in town that's what they can do, and anything outside of that, they need to file.
Yep.
It'll help, I mean,
And there was somebody asked for a list of native plants, so that's easy enough to get and put on there too, but, or we could put a link to a couple of
Yeah,
places
it'll
where
be a
they could
link.
look, rather than post it
Yeah.
on the website.
Yeah.
it's all good. Let's make that motion to adjourn, huh, are we done?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.